up by data, some pretty big numbers. Millions of migrants unlawfully mass paroled into the United States, hundreds of thousands of gotaways, and tens of thousands of fentanyl deaths. But today it's not about the data. Before us today are two actual victims of Secretary Mayorkas's open border. A mother whose daughter was sexually assaulted and murdered by an MS-13 member, and another member whose daughter was fatally poisoned by fentanyl. Ms. Dunn and Ms. Nobles, as a father of 3 young girls for whom I would do and give anything, I can literally not imagine what you're going through. I appreciate you being here today, ripping off some of the scabs of the wound that has been caused and telling us your story so that we could be more informed and help solve this problem. Appreciate you being here today. Madam Chairman, if we had a more secure border, these horrific tragedies could have been avoided. If Secretary Mayorkas stopped paroling mass groups of migrants into the United States, these tragedies could have been avoided. If Secretary Mayorkas stopped repositioning border agents away from the border just to sit behind a desk to process more and more unvetted migrants into the United States, we would have less grieving mothers. Madam Chairman, the Biden administration has often falsely claimed that 90% of all fentanyl comes through ports of entry. I actually have a video of Secretary Mayorkas claiming that, and if we could play that, please.
And people should understand, it is not in between the ports of entry that the majority of fentanyl is sought to be smuggled. It's not through the migrants that we encounter in between the ports of entry. It's through passenger vehicles, through commercial trucks at our ports of entry where the substance is concealed in compartments.
Congressman, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection data evidences that more than 90% of the fentanyl that enters this country is coming through the ports of entry.
The Secretary is wrong, and he's smart enough to know that he's wrong. 90% only accounts for what is seized and not what actually makes it across the borders. Only the cartels probably, who are profiting millions, tens of millions a month, know how much fentanyl is actually making it across the borders. In fact, Border Patrol officials have told this committee they believe that only 5 to 10% of fentanyl is actually seized. The fact that there are more than 70,000 deaths in our country in 2022 from fentanyl should be a telltale sign that fentanyl is flooding into this country, not only through ports of entry, but in between ports of entry as well. Ms. Dunn, do you think that pulling Border Patrol agents away from the border just to have them sit behind a desk to mass process more and more migrants into the country is a wise decision?
No.
Do you think that that decision leads to more opportunities for the cartels to traffic fentanyl into this country?
Yes.
Thank you. And what impact, and I know you have the most personal of experience, but what impact do you think that fentanyl has had on the public health of the United States?
Well, the most obvious one that I can see is I have a grandson that doesn't have a mother. He has other family that is able to raise him, but we haven't even begun to talk about the foster care system and how many children have lost their parents. Little babies under 18 that are now wards of the states. Where's all that money coming from? And let's think about the traumas and sadness and what it's like to not have parents because their parents died from fentanyl.
Ms. Dunn, the Secretary knows your story, and he knows of other stories like yours, and he hasn't changed his policies. He hasn't insisted those border agents stay on the border. He hasn't canceled the mass parole of migrants to the United States. What could you say with respect to the Secretary's likely approach and his care for situations like yours, given that he hasn't changed his policies?
It's very difficult for me to contain what I would say. How about that?
I appreciate that.
I'd rather not say what I would like to say.
You're a classy person, and I appreciate you being here before us today. I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, our southern border, under the control of Secretary Mayorkas, is 1,954 miles of failure. 10 million illegal crossings in 3 years. The disintegration of American sovereignty, total loss of American law and order, exponential enhancement of cartel human trafficking operations and cartel narcotics trafficking, millions of American families crushed by financial loss and the unspeakable grief of unprecedented loss of American lives to drugs and violent crime. This is the legacy of Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, and as God is my witness, we will impeach that man in this committee. We will hold him accountable for his colossal failure, and we will take no pleasure in doing so because it closes the chapter of a disastrous era of American history. We've largely lost our country down there. This body should be discussing sending massive military aid to Texas, not to Ukraine. Ms. Nobles, Ms. Dunn, I lost a daughter long ago. It's a club nobody wants to join. And I listened. It was difficult to listen to your testimony, and I read your submitted testimony. And the message that I received is that your daughters are perfected, and they are very, very proud of you both. I promise you, we will hold Secretary Mayorkas accountable and further the administration that he serves. Ms. Nobles, I'm going to ask you to reflect upon a particular policy that the Biden administration and Secretary Mayorkas pursues. The Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Health and Human Services have systems in place to quote unquote ensure that unaccompanied alien children from non-contiguous countries are transferred from Customs and Border Protection to the Office of Refugee Resettlement, ORR. But the House Judiciary report regarding your daughter's murder notes that the Office of Refugee Resettlement, ORR, had lost track of more than 85,000 children and placed fewer than 15,000 follow-up calls, not personal visits, after discharging an additional 32,000 children. Now, at no point did anyone under Secretary Mayorkas' command flag the violent criminal that murdered your daughter.
No.
Had a criminal gang history, along with multiple MS-13 tattoos. What would your daughter say about a Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security who facilitates a system that has lost over 100,000 children, mostly young teenage girls? Mrs. Nobles?
Sorry, what was your question?
What would your daughter say about over 100,000 lost teenage children of God? A system run like that.
She would be I'm sure she'd be very upset.
Her heart would break for those children, would they not?
Yes.
Americans just like her require action. And that's what this committee will deliver. Mr. Chairman, my time has expired.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Nhiều đêm ngắm sao mơ ước xin mình bền lâu suốt đời tình khắc sâu. buồn ơi, ánh trăng soi còn đó, và nghe hơi gió biết rằng mình vừa mơ. Khi yêu hôn như nở hoa say mộng tuyệt vời, nắm tương lai trong bàn tay, một câu nói thôi. Đôi khi gặp nhau muốn khơi nhưng rồi lại thôi, nói ra e ngại mặc theo gió trôi. Hôm nay nhìn xe kết hoa rồi ngược nẻo đường, gửi thư trao cho người yêu vài câu luyến thương. Hân hoan hồn như nở hoa trông chờ hồi âm, đắng cay trong lòng chỉ thấy thiếp hồng. Chiều tím không mây, đường cũ bước lần về, buồn nghe say dứt tim. Nhìn xe kết hoa màu trắng ngỡ rằng mình mơ, pháo hồng nhuộm tiến đường. Lá thu chậm rơi từng lá nghe buồn buồn, từng bước ai tìm về, mở rộng vòng tay đón anh nhưng nào thấy sầu dâng lên tim biết bao giờ cho khô. Nắm tương lai trong bàn tay, một câu nói thôi. Đôi khi gặp nhau muốn khơi nhưng rồi lại thôi, nói ra e ngại mặc theo gió trôi. Hôm nay nhìn xe kết hoa xuôi ngược nẻo đường, gửi thư trao cho người yêu vài câu luyến thương. Hân hoan hồn như nở hoa trông chờ hồi âm, đắng cay trong lòng chỉ thấy thiếp hồng. Chiều tím không mây, đường cũ bước lần về, buồn nghe say dứt tim. Nhìn xe kết hoa màu trắng ngỡ rằng mình mơ, pháo hồng nhuộm tiến đường. Lá thu chậm rơi từng lá nghe buồn buồn, từng bước ai tìm về, mở rộng vòng tay